What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. And today we have some late breaking news that I am actually really quick to get on top of. And I have a juicy morsel for you that doesn't seem to be in the articles. And I brought out the special guest, the Lowrider ST, because this is actually probably one of the last times I'm going to get to ride this bike. But today we are here to talk about the X350RA and the fact that it is officially coming to the United States, but it might not be available for sale. Let's hit the road and talk about it.
Okay, folks, now that we're out on the road, I wanted to start out by saying that obviously there has been a flood of content on the channel. I have no clue when I'm releasing this one, but it's entirely possible that this video has come out on a day where there is already another video live on the channel. Do not expect this pace of content to keep up. It's completely unsustainable. However, I am trying my best to get on top and stay on top of all this Harley news because a lot is happening really quickly, and I wanted to keep you guys informed. Now, speaking of staying informed, let's talk a little bit about background before we get too far into the facts on this story. First thing worth pointing out is that what we're talking about is the X350 and X500. Both of these are QJ built motorcycles built in China, and they are branded Harley-Davidson motorcycles. These are not built by Harley-Davidson, they are branded by Harley. And they're basically the exact same motorcycles that you find in the Leoncino 500 from Benelli and the 302S. Those motorcycles are shockingly affordable. The 302 is like $4,800 and the Leoncino's like $6,000. It's crazy how cheap these bikes are. Now, the facts for this story are kind of complicated, and we're going to go through them as much as we can here. And that starts with an article on Cycle World that was published at time of filming about 9 hours ago by Ben Purvis that confirmed that there is CARB paperwork as well as VIN data for the X350RA, the X350, as well as an X350 detuned version. The specific wording eludes me as I'm talking, but it will be on screen. And I will show you the CARB paperwork that confirms all this stuff. Now, for those of you who don't know, CARB is California Air and Resource Bureau, I think, something like that. Basically, it's just their emissions, it's their emissions testing. So these bikes are now officially cleared for use on the road in California. Why would you go through with that unless you are bringing these bikes to the States? So it stands to reason that these motorcycles are coming to the United States. I think that we'll probably hear more about it in like 3 to 6 months would be my guess. Maybe we hear about it next week, but we're going to hear about it relatively soon. Now, here is where things get truly interesting. I have had confirmation, and some of you people may have seen this in the comments below on videos where we were talking about Harley-Davidson, where people are talking about these Chinese bikes and whether or not they're going to come to the States. I have, from a source, code-named Heavy Breather inside Harley-Davidson, and I'm not making this up, I actually do have a source inside the company whose word on this stuff I trust beyond a shadow of a doubt. I have confirmation that the X350RA will not be made available for sale in the US. Okay, so they're not coming to the States, right? Not necessarily. That's initially what I thought when I read it. However, we got to unpack that statement a little bit. First of all, not made available for sale. That means that they are going to end up in the United States at some point. They're just not going to be something that the public can buy. Chances are, what this means is this is going to be their new Rider Academy motorcycle. For those of you who don't know, they use the Street 500 as their Rider Academy bike. This is a 500cc motorcycle that they released several years ago, and it's basically a cheap, easy way for people to get on a Harley Davidson because they're not using stuff like the Sportsters. They want a nice light bike that's very modern and very applicable to all other motorcycles. Whether you like it or not, the Sportster is a different kind of bike from other motorcycles, and so it doesn't make sense to train people on something so different. And this is backed up by this slideshow that you are now seeing on screen. This is from Oregon's motorcycle safety something or other. Basically, it's a presentation that Harley made showing off the X350RA as their new range bike. And it totally makes sense. This is a great option for Harley to use because the parts are going to be super cheap. If they get banged up, no one cares because they're cheap to replace. And we have 3 different models that are in that carb stuff. One of those models has like 38 horsepower, something like that, and the other 2 have like 26. Those 26 horsepower bikes make a ton of sense as range motorcycles because, for those of you who don't know, the Street 500 that they used in Rider Academy, well, that motorcycle's neutered. It can only go about 35 miles an hour, and I can't remember if it has 3 gears or 2. It's got first and second, or first, second, and third. And I know this because I actually trained on those bikes. I'm one of those people who ran out. I bought a Street 750 before I actually knew how to ride. It was parked in my garage, and then I took the Rider Academy because it was on a very similar motorcycle to the one that I had bought. Now let's unpack the second part of Heavy Breather's statement to me. X350RA, okay? There are 3 delineations: X350RA, X350, and X350RA with the detuned tag on it. So we know that RA is not going to be available. We can infer that the other version of the RA is not available, but what about the X350? I can't confirm or deny. It seems like it makes a ton of sense for Harley to offer the X350 as an entry point if they're going to be training people on it. Why would you train people on a motorcycle that you don't have in your lineup? That seems silly. There's also no information. I have not been able to confirm anything about the X500. I've tried, but I can't get any information on that one specifically, and everything that's coming out pertains specifically to the 350. So let's assume that the X350 is coming to the States for sale. Not the RA, but the plain X350. Is this a good thing? Yes, it absolutely is a good thing. In fact, I would go so far as to say, if Harley didn't bring it for sale in some form or fashion, the 350 and the 500, I'd actually be a little bit disappointed. Not because I'm super interested to get out and ride one of these motorcycles. It's not really the kind of bike that I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a, cheap beginner bike anymore. But there's no option on a Harley showroom floor for a cheap beginner bike. The only thing that you could reasonably start on from Harley Davidson in the past: Street 500, Street 750, Street 750XG, and or the 750A, the street rod, and the Sportster Iron 883. All of those bikes have been discontinued in some form or fashion. You can still find them out there in the secondhand market, but you can't buy them from Harley. And support for the Sportster's never going to stop, but support for the street line, well, you might see them phase it out, kind of like what they did with Buell. Giving people a very cheap way to get into the Harley Davidson brand, even if these bikes, they're not real Harley Davidsons, because they're not really. They're not even Harley Davidsons in potentia. They're completely built overseas. They're just licensed motorcycles that say Harley on the side. Despite all that, I still want them for sale in the States. They're not for me. They're for the next generation of riders. They're the way for Harley to get into the mind and the zeitgeist again of people who want to ride a Harley, but they want a sporting bike, and this is an easy way for them to do it on the cheap. Developing a whole new motorcycle is outrageously expensive. The amount of R&D is insane. If Harley can skip a step, I'm all for it. Also, it's worth pointing out, and I mentioned this in the other video about this, that KTM uses Chinese motors. They use it for their parallel twins. And they've actually licensed the 1302 to Chinese manufacturers. So it's entirely possible that in a few years, maybe we have a 890, a Bronx 890 on the showroom floor that weighs like 360 pounds and makes 120 horsepower and has technology and has a Harley badge on the side. I don't care if it's made in York. I don't care if it's made in Kansas. I don't care if it's made in Milwaukee. I just want to see Harley Davidson have a motorcycle on their showroom that caters to a different kind of rider. This is the thing that was missing for me from their announcement. Their model announcement was this: something to get the next generation of riders who are very budget minded, who want performance, who aren't looking for a rolling couch that costs $22,000. This is a way for them to get into those kind of people. Those are going to be the next generation of riders on Harley Davidsons, and whether or not they are going to buy those bikes, I'm not sure. It's going to come down to pricing, but I would go buy a Duke 890 with Harley badges all over the side. Even if it's not truly a Harley Davidson, it's the closest thing that I'm going to get to that Bronx. And you know what? Let's play this theory out a little bit. Let's say, for example, you start people out on the 350, then you have the 500. What's their next option? Well, somebody who goes on one of those bikes, they're likely not going to want to trade up for a big, crazy cruiser like this. They might be interested in getting on a Pan America, but chances are, if you've got a sport bike-minded rider, somebody who's looking for a naked bike experience or sport bike experience, and you want to keep them in the brand, you gotta have a middleweight motorcycle. You gotta have an MT-07, an MT-09, maybe a Jixistao or Ninja 1000 SX competitor. This could be the way that they can slowly work in that Bronx into production and show it off on the side of the road with all the rest of the Harleys out there. Because I'm going to tell you this for a fact, the Livewire handles like a proper sport bike, and that one is a heavy electric bike. It's you expect them to be weird? No, it handles beautifully. So they can build a naked bike, and I guarantee you, if they build one, people are going to buy it, they're going to check it out, and you might start just invigorating that next generation, showing that you can be a full-line manufacturer. The question is when? When is all this going to happen? I don't know. I wish I had my crystal ball. Heavy Breather is very, very, very tight-lipped about a lot of this stuff. This was one of the very first confirmations I could get about these motorcycles from him, and it took some doing. I've needled him about the Bronx for as long as I've known him. Not a word. So for those of you who are still waiting, you might be waiting a little bit longer. Well, guys, that is going to wrap up this video. Let me know down below what you guys think about all of this. Are you one of those purists who never wants to see one of these Chinese motorcycles alongside the Lowrider ST right here at a Harley showroom? Or are you one of those riders who's interested to see different things from Harley Davidson? I know I'm in that latter camp. So let me know down below. And until the next time, guys, I'll catch you later.